No, I just got an extra grain. So we've been in this. We've been in the series on the Ten Commandments, and then we kind of just took a little bit of a detour into the feasts as we had the last number of Sundays. But now we're going to return and come back to finishing up on the Ten Commandments. And today, our commandment is the 9th commandment. Can anybody recite that by heart? Nobody? All right, let me pull it up here. Okay, it talks about bearing false witness to our neighbor. Now, let me just, I want to read you a story here. Now, I heard this story told about 3 different ways, but I just picked one that I thought was a little bit shorter and so on. So, in a small village, there lived a young woman named Clara who loved to gossip. Now, I'm not talking about anybody in here necessarily. I'm talking about, this is Clara. We don't have any Claras in here, right? Every day she would gather with her friends and spread rumors about her neighbors, never considering the harm her words might cause. One day, Clara gossiped about the local baker, claiming he used spoiled ingredients in his bread. The rumor quickly spread, and soon the baker's business suffered greatly. Feeling guilty, Clara went to the village elder for advice. The wise elder handed Clara a feather pillow and told her to go to the top of the hill, cut open the pillow, and release the feathers into the wind. Clara did as she was told, watching as the feathers scattered in all directions. When Clara returned, the elder said, "Now go and collect all the feathers." Clara protested, "That's impossible. The feathers are scattered everywhere." The elder nodded and replied, "Just like your words. Once spoken, they cannot be taken back. They spread far and wide, causing harm and mistrust. Think carefully before you speak, for words have power." From that day on, Clara was mindful of her words, choosing to speak kindly and refrain from gossip. The village slowly restored its trust in the baker, and Clara became known for her wisdom and kindness. Interesting story. The moral of that story is what? Once you release something, you can't take it back. Once it's out there, you're not going to bring it back in. It's once a lie is released, truth can't fully be regained immediately. So today we look at the 9th commandment. Thou shalt not bear false witness against your neighbor. And we look at it in a couple places in the Old Testament. First of all, it says, "You shall not give false testimony against your neighbor." Exodus 20:16 and Deuteronomy 5:20. The Hebrew translated neighbor in this commandment can mean an associate, a sibling, a companion, a fellow, a friend, a spouse, or acquaintance. In other words, the Israelites were commanded to be truthful in all things about everybody. The people were not to lie publicly, as in a court of law, by any false charge that could injure another. But also they were not to lie privately by whispering, backbiting, slandering, or destroying another's character by innuendos, sly insinuations, or evil suggestions. You know, it's interesting because the whole dynamic is about hurting your neighbor. It's about hurting your neighbor. And when Jesus was asked what the greatest commandment was, what did he say? Love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, and mind, right? But then he went on to say, and the second is as important, love your neighbor as yourself. So the dynamic of when we talk about bearing false witness has to do with not loving your neighbor. It's not loving your neighbor. And so when we talk about this commandment, it's obviously, quite frankly, let's face it. How many here have lied before? So those of you who didn't put up your hand, you just lied. So you can put your hand up now. We have all lied. Let's face it. Whether it's withholding the total truth, whether it's with another way, we're going to talk about a few of the other ways, but the fact of the matter is, we have been on the sending side of bearing false witness, and how many of you have ever been on the receiving side of bearing false witness? That's tough, isn't it? That's happened to me numerous times, where somebody said something about me that I knew was not true, or that I did something that I knew I did not do. And it's tough. You want so bad to just make sure the truth is out there, but really you're left kind of with nothing to do. Once it gets out there, it gets out there. That's like any of you here, if you had a business, for instance, and somebody said that you were, hey, well, you know what, I'm not sure he really gave me what I was paying for. Guess what happens? It spreads. And now what happens? Even though that person may have had total integrity with what they charged, had total integrity with what they did, it's out there now. And it spreads like wildfire. Bearing false witness. Now, the fact is that we have to understand this from a loving your neighbor standpoint as well, too. Is bearing false witness against somebody really loving your neighbor? It's not, is it? In fact, in some ways, it's the opposite, isn't it? Go ahead.
So it was a question that I kind of asked myself. I mean, why would God include this commandment to the Israelites? Because it really does, it feels a little insignificant to thou shalt not kill, and thou shalt not commit adultery, and thou shalt not steal. This one feels a little bit like small compared to that. But you know what? It is significant. And this is why. First of all, God's people are to reflect God's character. Mm-hmm. That's what we're called to do. That's what the Israelites were called to do. In the midst of a society where there were many gods, they were to represent the one true God and what he stood for, and God is a God of truth. So this is from Numbers 23. God is not a man, so he does not lie like men do and women. He is not human, so he does not change his mind. Has he ever spoken and failed to act? That's a question. Well, how would you answer that? No. Has he ever promised and not carried it through? No. So he is not a lying God. He's a truthful God. The Israelites called themselves God followers, and therefore were expected to accurately reflect God's character in every way. Lying brought reproach to his name. And that's a big deal to God. Secondly, bearing false witness against another was destructive to the individual, just like Jay just said. If they were the victim of the lie, he could suffer his reputation or his business or his family. There's a lot of repercussions with this commandment. Thirdly, false witness was seen so destructive society that courts of law could function only if the witnesses who were called on to testify could be trusted. That's even today in court. In order for you to witness, sometimes they bring somebody else up to qualify the person that's going to witness to, you got to have an accurate witness. They were to tell the truth of what they witnessed. In Bible times, it was more critical because they didn't have things like DNA analysis, crime scene investigations, video cameras, and other means to discover or see the truth. So it reminded me of this story that I'm going to read to you. Will you hold this? Mm-hmm. I know you won't be able to see the pictures, but it's a pop-up book. 6 Blind Men and the Elephant. So here we go. In the faraway land of
Hang
India.
on. No. Well, you can talk loud. I know that, yes, but now you just turned the other way. So here, that's all right. There we go. All right. Good.
But now I can't read it.
Okay, that's all right.
In the faraway land of India lived 6 blind men. One day they decided they would like to learn about the elephant, so they went out to find one. When they found an elephant, the first man grabbed the squirming trunk in his hand, and he said, "The elephant is like a snake," he announced. The second reached up to touch the ear. "Don't be silly," he said. "Even a blind man can tell the elephant is just like a fan." "How ridiculous you both are," said the third man as he leaned against the broad side of the animal. "The elephant is exactly like a wall." The fourth blind man grabbed hold of the tail. "It's obvious the elephant is like a rope," he said. No, the fifth man said as he touched the elephant's sturdy leg. "The elephant is like a tree." The sixth man reached up and felt the elephant's sharp tusk. "You are all wrong," he said. "The elephant is just like a spear." Although each blind man was pretty right, all of them were wrong. They did not know that they needed to put all their discoveries together to find out what the elephant was really like. So they all had a piece of the truth, but not the whole truth. And so the 6 blind men argued long and loud as the elephant walked away. So even today, and to have justice in a society, there has to be credibility in the testimony and the whole truth investigated, not just a part. And God knew this when he wrote the 9th commandment.
In John chapter 8, Jesus says to the crowd, he says this, "You are the children of your father, the devil, and you love to do evil things he does. He was a murderer from the beginning, and a hater of truth. There is not an iota of truth in him. When he lies, it is perfectly normal, for he is the father of liars." Now, interestingly enough, some of the other versions say he's the father of lies. I love this because he's the father of liars. Whoa. He's the father of liars. Now, so if that's the case, when we lie, what are we declaring? That who's our father, you see? You see, this gets very deep. It gets very personal because when we lie, if we need to understand that we are emulating or we're the image bearer, so to speak, of who? Satan. That's how serious that is. When we lie, we're imitating Satan. And interestingly enough, as a side note, Satan as a liar lies to every one of us. He not only gets us to lie, but he lies to every one of us. There are people in here who the enemy has lied to, and you believe the lie. You have believed what the enemy has said about you, about who you are, about what you look like, about how you speak, about how smart you are. You have believed the enemy's lies. You need to know that the enemy is the father of lies. Lies started there. There are some folks here that need to deal in their own lives with the lies they've believed about them. Lies that says you're worthless, lies that say you're no good, the lies that have said you're never going to make it. All those are from the father of lies, because that's not what Jesus says about us. He's the father of lies. And he not only lies to us, he lies about us. And often what happens is he lies through people bearing false witness. He lies through people that are going to tell other lies about you, about who you are. Now, Dennis referred to a passage that deals directly with this, and that is the whole thing about what does the enemy come to do? To kill, steal, and destroy, right? You need to know that you have a target on your back from the enemy, that he is going to do whatever he can to kill you. Whether that's literally killing you, whether that's killing your spirit, whether that's killing your mind, whatever it is, he's trying to kill you. But that's who he is, because that's his nature. That's his nature. There are people in here who have had issues come up that, and all of a sudden they think to themselves, well, I guess I deserve that, or this or that, or the other thing, so on and so forth, and they basically beat themselves up. That comes from a lie of the father of lies. And we have to understand that, because you know what? Jesus wants to break the chains of our lives. Now, some of you, I hope all of you have come to know Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior. I hope that dynamic of your life is all sealed. But the fact of the matter is that there are some chains that are still keeping you, imprisoning you. And it usually comes from right here. This is the playground of the enemy. When you hear people lying to you, and sometimes it comes at an early age with parents that'll say things that aren't good things to say at all to your kids. I don't know how many times I deal at the jail with people that have been told, we call it, what's the terminology? Child, ACEs, adverse child experiences. In other words, things that happen early on as a child and have grown into you, and now you believe what you heard. Now you believe the father of lies that spoke it from somebody that bore false witness to who you are. And some people are in such chains with that. The chains that need to be broken. Chains that need to be taken off so that they're free in Christ. I ran across a passage in Proverbs 25:18. It says this: telling lies about others is as harmful as hitting them with an axe, wounding them with a sword, or shooting them with a sharp arrow. All right, Josiah, come here. Here you go, buddy. Jesse, come here. Okay, Josiah. Go ahead and hit Jesse with that axe.
I don't think I want to do that.
Why don't you want to do that?
It would hurt Jesse.
It would hurt Jesse. Yeah. You think that axe would hurt Jesse if you swung it?
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah. Do you think you can even pick that axe up? Yeah, like that. Well, that makes me feel better. But you would hurt him, right? Okay, good. Thank you. I'm not going to have you swing it. You might be too dangerous swinging that thing anyway. Isn't that strong? It says telling lies about others is harmful as hitting them with an axe. It's like pulling a gun on them and shooting them. That's how serious this is. Nobody here would take an axe and kill somebody. At least I hope not. But that's what it is. We have to understand the seriousness. As Christ followers, we have to understand the seriousness of what we speak and what we tell, the lies that we speak. Says the next passage out of Proverbs 6, there are 6 things the Lord hates. No, 7 things he detests. Haughty eyes, a lying tongue, hands that kill the innocent, a heart that plots evil, feet that race to do wrong, a false witness who pours out lies, a person who sows discord in a family. I want you to know that when you're a false witness and you sow something into somebody's life, I want you to know that God hates that. He hates it. I didn't say he hates you. I said he hates that. He loves you, and he wants you to stop doing it. Do you want to do something God hates? No. But yet, frankly, it happens seemingly all the time anymore. I find it interesting that we're coming up to I'm going down a rabbit trail here. But what we're coming up to our political campaign season. Let's all be excited about it. Well, do you know the interesting part of it is that the politicians, first of all, we assume that no politician lies. Isn't that fair enough? I mean, that no tells the truth. Is that fair enough? We just assume right off the get-go that they're going to lie. Is that fair enough? I mean, especially on the national scene. We see our politicians. Isn't that a terrible place to be? That you automatically assume that these people running for office, federally particularly, are lying? But you know what the other thing is? Is the politicians then believe that we are so gullible that we'll believe the lies. That's the other side of it. Telling the truth has to start with us, not bearing false witness.
So wait to put the next one up just a second, because I want to see what you guys think.
He's got it up already.
Oh, shucks. Why do people lie? This was a study done by the Wisconsin. University. Okay, he took it down, so maybe he can get. So give me some reasons that people might lie. Just shout them out. Why would a person lie? Not to hurt someone. Mm-hmm. What else? They don't like you. Get them to like you. To get what they want. Ooh. Truth is uncomfortable. Ooh, that makes them lie. Okay, so this is the study done by the University of Wisconsin. And so you lie and say you got something planned so you don't have to go, oh, you're
Nobody's ever done that here, I'm sure.
Lying as a joke was the next one, such as something like this. You're so ugly. Just kidding. We worked with one of our sons on that for a while when he was in middle school because everything was a joke. You know, I hate your shirt. Oh, just kidding. You know, things like that. People hear the first part of that statement and they don't hear the second part that I'm just joking. Lying to protect oneself. So here's another story about, and neither of these two sons are here, so this is a good story. So Josh and Joel were in middle school, around that age, and I agreed to buy a thing of pop every week at groceries, but they were allowed only one per day. Well, by the third day, it's all gone. Okay, so I still don't know who's lying. But they did not drink just one per day. So they were lying to protect themselves from punishment, I'm sure. The next one was lying to impress, such as exaggerating on a resume. Ooh. Trying to be popular. I want to be Okay. Lying to protect another person. Now this one, we were watching a cop show of some kind, and a dad lied to protect his son who had murdered someone. So he was lying so that his son wouldn't go to prison. Lying to benefit self was the next one, such as lying about a coworker to increase my chances for a promotion. And we have this funny story we're going to tell you on this one.
Two guys are walking in the woods, and a snake comes up and bites one guy on the buttock and infects him with deadly venomous poison. And immediately he falls to the ground. He's in an almost paralyzed state. Death is coming upon him, and he is certain to die, and they are 10 miles away from the nearest town. And so he looks up at his buddy and he says, I need you to run into town, find the only doctor, and bring him to save my life, he says. Okay, you got it. 10 miles, runs into town, finds the only doctor. The doctor's in the middle of delivering a baby, a complicated birth. The doctor says, I cannot leave. I need you to follow my instructions. You need to run back to your friend. You need to get a razor and cut him where he was bit and infected. You need to put your mouth on his buttocks and suck all the poison out and spit it on the ground to save his life. The man runs 10 miles back to his friend. His friend looks up. What did he say? Friend says, he said you're going to die.
Yeah, so that was, he lied to benefit himself on that one. And then the least one was interesting. Only 2% said lying to intentionally hurt another person. You know, that tells me that most people don't intentionally want to hurt someone. There are probably some cases of that, but unfortunately, even that's a lie because it does hurt someone, no matter what the intention is. So I kind of searched a little bit for some Bible characters that lied. Because we sometimes put Bible characters on a pedestal, and they had some problems too. Abraham, he lied about his wife Sarah because he feared for his own life. He was afraid that if people found out that she was his wife, they would kill him and take her. And he did that on 2 occasions. Isaac, his son, also feared for his life more than his wife. And he did about the same thing. He lied and said that his wife Rebekah was his sister, not his wife. Jacob, going down the family line here, Jacob lied to his father with his mother's help to steal his brother's birthright. And that has caused long-term effect, not just between the family members. There was a young soldier that lied to David, claiming he had killed King Saul when he had not, because he wanted a reward. So again, it was for his own benefit. Ananias and Sapphira, you may know that story. They sold a piece of land and lied about the amount that they gave back to the apostles, claiming they had given the full amount when they had kept some back for themselves. They immediately keeled over in that situation. And of course, Peter, he denied he knew Jesus 3 times while Jesus was being interrogated. He lied 3 times about his connection to Jesus. You know, we're all sinful humans, and we're all self-focused. That's what Jesus died to rescue us from, is our self-focus, our selfishness. And we all, whether we intend to or not, do things to benefit self. And that's the main reason that we have this commandment, to not bear false witness.
Now, we understand also, too, that there are stories in the Bible where someone lied, for instance, Rahab, lied to protect, so on. But you have to understand, her motive behind that wasn't to hurt anyone. And we have to keep that in mind as well, too, because that's key. Now, so I once was put on the stand. I had to testify in a court about one of our programs at the jail and so on. And the judge said, will you raise your right hand? And I raised my right hand, and he said, do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, nothing but the truth? And, of course, our courts anymore leave out, so help you God. So I said, yes. Now, it's interesting because this whole dynamic started, this whole thing of bearing false witness was also actually a legal term back then, because they didn't have all the DNA, the evidence and stuff like that they have now. They didn't have CSI. They didn't have all that stuff now. They were totally dependent upon eyewitnesses. And so they would get them up. Are you going to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? And their whole system depended upon people telling the truth. and the whole truth. Now, it's interesting because it implies, do you swear to tell the truth? In other words, you're going to tell everything that's truthful, the whole truth. In other words, you're not going to leave anything out, and nothing but the truth. You're not going to add anything. So when I read this report from I think it's called the American Psychologists Association, and they were talking about how they knew when somebody lied or when somebody was telling the truth. They said the people that told the truth, they could go back and ask them again to add more details, and they will. They had more details. The people that were lying would go back and tell the same story because they didn't have any more details. So they didn't have the whole truth. Interestingly enough, when attorneys, when they question somebody, what they'll do is they'll ask them to tell their story, and then a lot of times they'll go backwards. And they'll have them tell the story backwards to see if they tell the same story. And often what ends up happening is they have a different story than they told the first time. They work backwards. But when somebody tells the story, when somebody tells the truth, they can tell the truth forward or backward. That's a challenge. For you to tell the truth, can you tell the truth forward and backward? When you talk to somebody about somebody else and you, quote, tell the truth, can you tell the truth forward and backwards? Can you tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth? We see this in marital counseling all the time. The first time we sit with a couple in marital counseling, we have her story, we have his story, and then we have the truth. That's usually the way it works. And what ends up happening is each one of them, they kind of shape their truth to what benefits them. So you'll sit there and you'll say to somebody, I'll say to Jerry, I'll say, okay, so now with what she said, was that true? And you might say what? From her point of view. From her point of view. And you would have a different point of view. Fair enough? Now, neither one of them maybe said anything wrong. Neither one of them said untruths. They may have said truth, but they arranged it in a way that made them look good. That made them look like they weren't the problem. Very, very, very seldom is there only a one-sided problem. I just want you to know. So what you end up having to do is you have to go through and sort it. So they may not tell the whole truth. So-and-so, Sandi didn't cook for me the other night. Well, that's a very sexist statement, isn't it? Okay, if I said that, but then on the other side of it, if you knew Sandi was sick in bed, you see how easy that can change things? She didn't cook for me. Well, it's terrible that she wouldn't cook for it. But the fact of the matter is, she was sick in bed. I should have cooked for her, right? But I shape it and form it. And that's what we do. We want, when we bear false witness, what we're doing is we're taking our story and we're shaping it and we're forming it to our better advantage. It's bearing false witness. It's bearing false witness.
Now, I want you all to know that these two are not in marital counseling right now.
No, I'll make that clear. All right, yes. Maybe they, I don't know.
It does remind me of a story. This was a long time ago, but Jay was preaching again, and he said at the start, it's been a tough morning this morning. My wife and I had an argument, and so we were just sharing you know what came out the next week? Jay and Sandi are getting a divorce. because of that little piece of honesty that we shared, that, things aren't perfect sometimes on Sunday mornings, especially when you got a bunch of kids in the house getting ready and blah, blah, blah.
But it was always her fault. I just want everybody to know that. I could tell my story.
Now don't go out and spread all that. So there's a second part of that statement of telling the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth that we want to touch on, because nothing but the truth includes a few things. Like, how about flattery? Okay, so I looked at what that means, and it's just defined as excessive or insincere praise given especially to further one's own interests. So there's a motive there. If we go to the next slide, in Psalm 12, 1 and 2, it says, "Help, O Lord, help, for the godly are fast disappearing. The faithful have vanished from the earth. Neighbors lie to each other, speaking with flattering lips and deceitful hearts." Flattery shouldn't be confused with encouragement, because encouragement is a God thing. But encouragement is sincere praise, while flattery is fake praise. Flattery happens in order to get a promotion again, or to get someone to like you, or to accept you, or to get a compliment back. Flattery is a definite violation of the 9th commandment, because it's not speaking truth, it's manipulation. So another one that could be in this category is deception, which is the act of causing someone to accept as true or valid what is false. So you probably know some person or persons that are easily deceived. We call it, they're gullible. They'll believe anything, and then they'll pass it on often. And Jay said about the political season, see, he jumped ahead. It was supposed to be right here, but that's okay. But deception can also be bearing false witness.
The third one I want to talk about is slander, or libel, too. Slander is the spoken word, libel is the written word. It's defined as an action or crime of making false spoken statement damaging to a person's reputation. How many here have ever been slandered? It's painful, isn't it? It hurts. In other words, it hurts your neighbor. It says in Leviticus 19:16, it says this, "You shall not go about as a talebearer among your people, nor shall you take a stand against the life of your neighbor." In other words, you don't be a talebearer. What's a talebearer? Well, it's someone who spreads gossip, rumors, or secrets, often with the intent to cause harm or discord. In other words, they're telling tales. That's what a talebearer is. They're telling tales. Now, it's interesting because Proverbs 18:8 says that the words of a talebearer are like tasty trifles. Another translation calls them dainty morsels. Now, I'll be honest with you, we probably all know someone that really tries to find all the dainty morsels they can find so they can pass on to other people. You know what? I hope that's not you. I hope that's not you. I hope you're not a talebearer. Can I also encourage you that if we talk about it had in the definition about gossip, would it be okay if I said that probably there's nobody here that hasn't gossiped before? Can I encourage you that if people gossip with you, they gossip about you? If people gossip with you, they're gossiping about you. I read an interesting story as I was studying for this. An elderly man had serious hearing problems for a number of years. His family tried again and again to convince him to get a hearing aid. Finally, he relented. He went to the doctor and was fitted for a set of hearing aids that allowed him to hear 100%. A month later, he went back to the doctor. The doctor said with a smile, "Your hearing is perfect. Your family must be really pleased that you can hear again." The old man replied, Oh, I haven't told my family yet. I just sit around and listen to their conversations. I've changed my will 3 times. Isn't it interesting? It's interesting how we'll talk about people when we don't think they can hear us. But eventually they will. That stuff spreads like wildfire. The great evangelist Leonard Ravenhill said this: we never pray for folks we gossip about, and we never gossip about the folks for whom we pray. Can I encourage you? There's so much wisdom there. We don't gossip about the people we're praying for. But we never pray about for the people that we're gossiping about. I debated on sharing this, but even in some of the roots of this congregation, at one point in time, this was a very gossipy congregation. And this is years and years ago. And when we first came, we literally had to say that if we hear somebody saying something about someone else, I will come to you and I will confront you with that, with what you said. Because often gossip has no accountability. Often people assume that it's true, that it's truth. Can I encourage us this morning that when you hear something said about someone, that you confront that person that's saying it and ask them for facts? And can I encourage you, if you hear something through the grapevine, so to speak, that don't just believe it. Go and find facts of the situation. That's how family is to operate. It is not to operate by people talking about each other. It's not to operate as people bearing false witness to other people here, especially in the family. I still hold true to that. If I hear somebody talking about somebody, I'm going to go and I'm going to find out truth. Because I'm not going to believe everything that I hear. I'm not going to be gullible enough to believe that everything that I hear is truth about someone. We don't know. You see, the problem is there's this dynamic of the sin of omission. You leave out facts. And and most of the time you don't even know the facts. If we're going to be Christ's followers, like we desire to be, then we have to violently deal with the 9th commandment. Violently. In our lives and with others. I want you to know, gossip, lies, bearing false witness doesn't put you at a better place. And it for sure hurts the person that you're gossiping about. Just in closing, I want to just ask you 3 questions. The first question, and this is a question you can ask yourself: does this exact information need to be shared? If you hear something, do you automatically need to share it? You know, one of the things that, I just even this past week, I had to go on the scene of a person who took their life by suicide. And one of the things I had to tell the wife was that You need to tell everybody that you want to hear from you what has happened, because you don't want them to hear it from the internet and social media. Because I kid you not, people put on social media, they put on Facebook, whatever it might be, they put all this stuff on before we can even get started. Oh, I think that was, they put on there, hey, I think that was so-and-so's car that was in that crash. And, oh, hey, all those cops are at such an address. There must be somebody must have died there. That's the kind of stuff we deal with. Because those are the dainty morsels. Everybody wants the dainty morsels. Can I encourage you? Do you need to share the information? If yes, then are these the right people to share it? If you hear something and you confirm it and you have fact to back it up and so on, so who are you going to tell? Because there's proper channels to deal with stuff like that. If no, then why would you share it? If the information, quote, you heard, if it doesn't need to be shared, then don't share it. Simple as that. Don't share it. The second question. Do you have all the facts correct, or is it hearsay? Let's be honest about it. We have told probably over and over again something without having the correct facts. And it's just been hearsay. Yeah, Eric.
Yeah, I can't get it off my heart, too. This is something that's been on my heart for a couple different parts of my life, in the church, but also outside of church.
I'm going to let you take the microphone here.
I just want to say this comes from a place that that's happened in the church and outside of the church. Sometimes with this slander, I'm a teacher, if you don't know, but I've also been in the church and felt this kind of hurt. This slander, some people's jobs, and I just want people to think about this too, especially because words are so easy to pass on Facebook and social media. But a guy like me and Tim and Alex and all the other teachers in here and Jay, the only thing we have is character.
Yeah.
It's the only thing I've been working at for 30 years is to keep my character in check. Yeah. And so for somebody to come along and say, it could take one thing for me to be done.
That's right.
It could be one thing for me to be done. And I just want to encourage everybody, and for Jay.
Yeah, it's
I can say one thing about Jay, and his job is done. Because I ruined his character, and that's the only thing he has as a pastor is his character. Yeah. And so some people's jobs, they might take some slander and might dislike it and say, hey, that kind of hurt. And other people's jobs, if my job is just, my job is purely based on character. That's it. And so I just want to encourage everybody to be very careful about your words. It's not just to hurt somebody. It really could take everything they've worked for away, both in the church, but also in education as well. And so, that's come across my mind a couple of times in the last 10 years, where one's hurtful and one is, I lost my whole identity because of what somebody said. And my, everything I've worked for the last 30 years or however many years you've been a pastor, et cetera. So it is powerful and it is easy to do. Yeah. And so as Christians, I just want to encourage everybody to really, really be careful and then also search for those facts, and maybe there is a time for, that truth to come out and forgiveness and things like that. But really the truth to come out. So, and some grace along with us. So
very good. Well said, Eric. Thank you for that. And I would add to that, because you know what? My integrity is everything to me. Right. It's always been everything to me. And when people challenge my integrity, my character and integrity is all I got. Right. I read a story how Charles Spurgeon was accused at one point in time of being a womanizer. And years later, and he went through the pain of that. Charles Spurgeon suffered from depression. He suffered from a lot of these things because of that. Only to come out 10 years later, I think it was 10, I don't know exactly, but 10 years later, everybody that was involved in that recanted their story because it wasn't truth. It's really damaging. The last question here, Sandy. If you feel you need to share, what is your motive? What is your motive? If you feel you need to share information with somebody, why? What's your motive? Is your motive to tear that person down? Do you know, there are people in this world that tear other people down just so they can feel better about themselves. That's a total lie. They have issues that they need to deal with of lies of the enemy about who they are because that propels them to tear other people down. If you feel you need to share it, why? Ask yourself the question, why do I need to share this? What am I trying to do with it? Who am I trying to, what's my motive? What's the end game here? What's the end game? Is there one more? Yeah, there's one more. Will sharing this info be pleasing to God? That's where it all ends up, isn't it? Are you loving your neighbor in sharing that? Are you loving your neighbor in bearing false witness? You're not. You're not. And can I encourage you, if you're not loving your neighbor, you're not pleasing to God. Don't know how else to say it. This is one I think we all have to deal with. And as I said before, we need to deal with this violently as Christ followers in ourselves, that we never do it. Unfortunately, there's a lot of water under that bridge, isn't there? We can't do anything about that. But maybe there's things that you need to make right that you've shared. Maybe there's some things that you need to go to somebody and say, you know, when I told you this, you just need to know that that wasn't true. I'm sorry. And ask their forgiveness for that. Maybe there's some slates that need to be cleaned. But from here on out, deal with the temptation, even the sin of bearing false witness. Amen? Yeah, go ahead.
I think there's a way that we as Christ followers can stop the false accusations too. If someone comes to me and says, you know, so-and-so did this or that, did you hear that? The quickest way to stop it would be, well, let's go talk to them and see if that's true. Yeah. Let's go together and go talk to them. That will stop it immediately. So we also need to stop doing it, but also need to be part of the solution.
Yeah. And I also say, we're to be image bearers. Image bearers of Jesus, not image bearers of Satan. Image bearers of Jesus. What does that mean? That means we're to talk, we're to look, we're to speak, we're to believe like Jesus would believe. We're to be image bearers. Can I encourage us all to be image bearers of Jesus? Let's stand as we close. Dennis, did you have anything? Okay. Does anybody have anything else they wanted to share off this before we close? I will open this up. Anybody has anything to share?